Okay, I think we're live. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're back with another beautiful interview with Nikki Elledge Brown, who is the creator of A Course About Copy and also the host of the Naptime Empires podcast. And just honestly excited to connect with you and chat with you. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes. So let's just kick it off with you telling us a little bit about yourself in case people listening have never met you before. Besides your introduction, tell us about you.
So I actually just officially completed what was like a several-month move from the middle of the Pacific Ocean over in Hawaii back to deep in the heart of Texas. So I am a mother of two, military spouse. That's why we were living in Hawaii for the last decade. My husband's been in the Navy, and we have two little guys who are 5.5 and 1.5. I started my business in between the two. So just over 4 years ago is when I started my business, just truly out of a place of inspiration because my background is in communication studies. I'll look at the camera.
You're fine.
So my background is in communication studies, which is literally the social science of communication. How and why we communicate the way we do. So I have a bachelor's and master's degree both in that from TCU in Fort Worth, go Frogs. And at the beginning of 2013, I started my business truly, like I said, out of inspiration. I started to notice what I call divine breadcrumbs that had always been leading me to a path of connecting and sharing in a bigger way, but I just didn't notice them until I finally made time to wake up before the sound of the baby monitor and actually have that quiet time, which is like #life goals, something that I'm trying to do now that we're finally in our new house and we can finally start having a better routine or just kind of any routine whatsoever. Because that was like a magical time, truly, and so powerful to have quiet time before anyone else woke up, journaling, reflecting, and then that's what sparked what has now been a 4+ year journey, which is crazy to me. Like it feels like a time warp to imagine that I'm actually in my 5th year of business now. It's just weird. But yeah, so that's the case. So I started my business helping people with connecting, communicating. Specifically, when I decided to start my business, it was because I'm like, okay, I want to help people with communication, but anybody can benefit from help with communication. So who am I going to help? Started to help entrepreneurs, and then specifically because business owners, if you can't communicate the value of what you've got between your ears, then you're stuck before you start. Like your booty is on the line. You've got to be able to communicate your message effectively. And so I started with that. I worked one-on-one with 100 people, like right off the bat in my first summer in business. And then I ended up in my first year creating a course out of that, out of everything that I had learned from working with, by that time, over 160 people, 2,000 hours of college level teaching experience when it comes to communication. I packaged it into a course, like you mentioned, called A Course About Copy, to help people write their sites in a way that feels like them. Because I understand it's super overwhelming if you're looking at a blank page and you're trying to analyze 50 different ways to write an about page, and you're like, I really just need to move on to this other thing and cross this off the list. So that's what I created with A Course About Copy. And then Naptime Empires has been just the latest evolution, which is really just a conversation. That's why I started it as a podcast, because I just want to have this conversation, refreshingly honest conversations on the realities of parenthood and entrepreneurship. Like we were just talking about, my big little guy upstairs, well, little guy is napping upstairs, and my big little guy is playing Mario Kart with his daddy right now. So you may hear some, from the door upstairs.
Thank you for kind of sharing that journey. And I feel like that's such a good, I'm only 1 year into my business journey, and I'm sure many of the women watching resonate with that it's like a journey, right? And so I love that you pointed out specific points along the way when you got more clarity and leaned into oh, this is my thing, or, oh, I'm really good at this. And it's not normal that most people are good at this. So maybe I can leverage this, right? And I think it's so beautifully, you told it so beautifully as a story, because it's not this one magic moment and everything was forever clear. But I love that you shared that evolution.
Yeah. Yeah. And that keeps happening. Right now, even currently in my middle of 2017, and I have a whole podcast, I called it the Postpartum Biz Baby Blues, because after I had my second little one, everything kind of shuffled up again, whereas I was on a roll and very clear. And then all of a sudden I was like, what the F am I doing? Like, what do I actually really want to talk about? You know, what is it really? And I'm still in that evolution. And so many people are right now, which is refreshing and comforting. And it's just like, you know, that's why we just need to have the tools in place to where we can figure it out as we go, you know, and to be open. Like a lot of my best stuff has just been about those divine breadcrumbs and being open to those intuitive hits and what I call the divine downloads too, because that's when all the best stuff has happened. The worst stuff is when I sit here and try to be like chained to my desk and force something out. Like this has to make sense, because that just drops the energy instantly.
Yes, I agree. I just had like 900 questions hit me as you said that, but into my like you mentioned, like or take us back to like in the early days, like when you first had some of those like initial sparks, like this is my thing, and then also like take us to where you're at now, like what that process looks like for you currently.
Yeah, so the earliest days, like I was saying, that's when I was, and I'm committed to getting back into that, because truly it's like I had this magical couple of months at the beginning of 2013 where I was actually waking up before the sun and before my son and even before my husband in some cases. And it was so powerful. I honestly feel like I've been afraid of that power. Like there's this book, Florence Scovel Shinn, Your Word is Your Wand. And so I feel like this isn't like a journal to write in, but just for illustrative purposes.
Yes.
I feel like there's so much power when I have quiet time, like especially in the morning first thing, and put a pen to paper. Because I never would have thought about even creating a business. It wasn't something like, I want to start a business. What's my business going to be? It truly felt like a knock on the head. Like,
wow,
Nikki, I gave you these gifts. It's time to share them in a bigger way. It didn't feel like an option. It felt like an inevitability. So it was like, okay, is it a book? Is it a different blog? Because at the time I had been writing just for fun, a blog called Stories from a Screensaver. Just because I wanted to record fun stories of like, you know, outings with Bryson or funny things that happened or when our iPhone was stolen and like just random stories, because I liked telling stories and I liked writing for fun. And the feedback that I was getting, which is like, I love everything you write. You should really write a book. Like, again, those were the divine breadcrumbs. So being open to that was great and important, because then I was like, okay, communication, who can I help? But then, and it all happens as it needs to happen for the lessons that we need, right? But I ended up taking a turn. It was like, okay, cool, thanks. I got it from here. Let me manhandle the outcome. And it was like, okay, once I decided to do a business with it, now I know it is blog, book, business, all of those things. But when I started to do that, then I just started focusing on what's going to make money. I made a lot of money in a very short span of time. So for reference, before I started my business, I was working as a park ranger at Pearl Harbor, and I was facilitating online courses for University of Phoenix, because I've always loved facilitating light bulb moments. So from the time I finished grad school, moved to Hawaii, I always wanted to keep my finger on teaching in case I wanted to go back to the community college, because I love those face-to-face, like, oh, now I get it, or oh, now I'm feeling more confident giving my presentation, whatever. So I was making $10 an hour if you count like all the hours that went into facilitating the courses. And then for my government job, even with a master's degree, because it wasn't that kind of job, I was making $14 an hour. So with my business, as soon as I put myself out there in a group of people who clearly needed what I had to offer, I made over $21,000 in my first 6 weeks of business. And that just like blew my mind. It still blows my mind. But hello, how much clearer can it be? Like positive affirmation that, yes, thank you. Finally you're listening. Finally, you're doing something that
I love that.
You know? So I know that like results not typical across my forehead, but I was expecting to make that maybe in a year. So to make it within my first 2 months, it blew my mind. However, the shadow side of that, right? There's always a shadow and a light. The light side of that was like, this is freaking awesome. Oh my gosh, everybody has a money tree. Why doesn't everybody start their own business and share their value and genius? But the shadow side of that was like, when I started, I was in this pure naive place of not having expectations on myself. I wasn't putting a pressure on myself to make a certain amount of money. But then I realized, whoa, the power, whoa. I could make this much. I could make this much. Now I need to be on track for this much, this much, this much. And then I just sucked all the fun right out of it because I put so much pressure on myself. And I call myself a recovering perfectionist, so I tend to attract a lot of that similar vein. I literally just sent an email that was saying great news for recovering perfectionists and overachievers. But that was kind of the shadow side of it, because then I started to put all that pressure on myself. And so that's something now that I'm kind of looking at, reflecting on, and just figuring out how do I move forward, knowing the power, but then also the danger of only focusing on that and then tying your self-worth too much into what your revenue is and that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I love that reminder. I think it's powerful. What would you say, like, in thinking about, like, in light of all that and where you're at today, like, how do you alluded to, like, tools, right? Like having the tools for that. And like, I love your analogy of divine breadcrumbs, but for someone who is feeling stuck, or still working on leveraging and uncovering that, like what does make me different? Like maybe, you know, they're similar to you in that they started something, but they're at a new phase. That's like kind of where I'm at. Or maybe they're like starting from square one. Like, what are some of the practical tools that people can use to kind of uncover those breadcrumbs or detect them?
Yeah. So one of my favorite books that just kind of opened my eyes big time is called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks.
Love that one.
I read that one. I highly recommend it. And then two of my other humans who have and offer tools are Denise Duffield Thomas and Susan Ferraro. So they're friends of mine, but also like I have learned so much, and that's how I ended up getting to know them in the first place. Was like Denise has a book and she has a course, and then Susan was a coach and now she has programs too. But like both of them have just really helped me, like just stuff I wasn't even aware of. Like I didn't, for example, with Denise, money blocks, like I knew of writer's block, but I didn't know like money blocks were a thing. And I would kind of roll my eyes and be like, okay. Or like EFT, you know, like there's a book called Tapping Into Wealth, EFT. And I thought tapping was really weird. And then I tried it and I was like, oh, actually that makes a lot of sense, because you're tapping on these acupressure points. But whether or not the tapping on the acupressure points does anything, you're also just acknowledging this limiting belief that you have, which is like, it's going to be really hard for me to make $3,000 extra this month or whatever. Like, and to me, you're talking yourself through, and I see like a little tank, like a gas tank in your car, you know, where it's like you start here, then by the time you're done, and there's like all kinds of free YouTube videos with tapping scripts and stuff, you kind of just talked yourself through it. Like, oh yeah, okay, it's actually not that big of a deal, you know, and like just having tangible tools like that, but also like energetic tools of being able to spot that, having friends. I call my friends my cabinet of friend tours, because I learned so much from them. And we just kind of, if I'm having a day where I'm like, I'm spinning out, you know, send the alert emoji, like help. I logically know that this isn't true, but I am freaking out right now. And I really need someone to remind me that I actually do have value to offer, that it's actually not a big deal for me to put it out, that I actually do feel a lot better when I email my list as opposed to hide out for a few months. Like, so friend, books, and then just having a couple of easy mobile tools like that have been priceless to me.
I love that. So practical, like really, really step by step. I'm like adding these to like my mental to-do list too, as you're saying them. So tell us like what you're up to today, and like just why you feel like all those things have brought you to where you're at right now.
Yeah. Well, to me, it's just a victory to actually have an office that's like reasonably cleared. So when I started my business, we were in a house that had no office, you know, so it would be like my living room or my kitchen or whatever. And then our last house, I had an office that had no doors. This office has doors, although I'm realizing that they're kind of just for looks, because they don't block out like any sound whatsoever. So like, I'm just like, my word of the year for 2017 was space. So it's appropriate that we moved back to Houston, which is nicknamed Space City, because I just wanted to give myself space to create and to kind of explore what truly is next, and not force it, not rush it, not have that false sense of urgency. And so that's kind of where I am right now, is just finally getting my bearings. We started moving from Hawaii 2 months ago in May, but we only just moved in last week, you know, so it's like our stuff was gone and then in transit, and then we were at my parents' house, and now we're about to have a family vacation. So just when I'm like, routine, I'm kind of like, wait, wait. So I feel like in August I'll finally hit a groove. But for the last few months, I started my podcast in January. Well, I recorded it in October of last year, but I didn't actually get the guts and just pull the trigger and put it out there until January. And that was great. And then we started moving and such. But as we started moving, I created what I called the trimester of awesome, which was just a mastermindy experience is what I called it, where I just wanted to see and experiment for myself. Like, how do I like creating and holding space for women to come in and share what's going on with them throughout this Naptime Empire season of life, which really encompasses everything. Like, yeah, there's business stuff for sure. And I'm happy to always share and be open about whatever I'm learning and whatever's going on. But I also want to talk about the life stuff, because the people I attract are like me, where it's easy for you to switch into work mode and become an asexual, antisocial workaholic without even realizing it, because you get so swallowed by work because it's a default mode. It's kind of easier. It's like more predictable. And then we forget to do the stuff like schedule doctor's appointments and go explore something outside of your house in your local community, like the lifey stuff. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, is just like, I used to be a really well-rounded person. I used to host game nights for my friends in college, you know, but like I haven't entertained at our last house, or this one, because we just moved in, you know. But you know what I mean? Like the lifey stuff. I was a well-rounded person, and then I say that it was like I turned into a well-sharpened pencil, where it was like business, 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 business. So of course, then my self-worth was very tied into the results of my business. And I do think that they will complement each other, right? As Susan says, the universe will treat you as well as you treat yourself. Anyway, but that's kind of my conversation and what I'm interested in talking about and learning more about, and just really, again, leading that conversation and paying attention to that conversation is like, how are we managing the whole person? Like, who is she who wears the hats? Not just the business hat, not just the mom hat or the wife hat, but like, who are you? What's lighting you up? What's energizing you? And how are you making that a priority? As opposed to just like, yeah, I'll get to that stuff later. Because if you keep putting it off, I just did a video on this a couple days ago. The delayed gratification ends up just becoming straight up denied gratification, and you never actually get there. And that's not what life is meant to be like. So
such an important reminder. And I feel like too, like that is what helps us like show off our spark as an entrepreneur, right? Is not just like, yes, the value and expertise we bring, but more than that, like us. Right? Like people were buying your buy your course on copy because it's good, but also because it's from you, right? And they resonate with you, they resonate with your message. And so I love that you're reminding and empowering women to like get back into that place of, I don't know, just like normal, healthy human womanness, so that they can also do better in their business. I know for me, I was talking to my husband the other day and I was like, what are my hobbies again? Like, what are the things that I love to do? Like, how can I get back into like my hobbies, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's bizarrely easy, and it's not like we need to beat ourselves up over one more thing. It's just to notice it and then be like, okay. Like I posted in my group, it's not even a groupie group. It's really just a place where I can connect with people without having to open Infusionsoft. But I posted in my group, I was like, what's one thing you would love to do in your personal life when you had more time for it? Like when you imagine someday you, who has her ish together, like what would she do? What would she do for fun? And so people were posting stuff like going on a humanitarian service trip, or going to work out, or going horseback riding, or reading for fun, or watching the sunset. And I'm like, okay, so when can you get that on the books? Like, so what can you actually do? Because it's so, again, bizarrely easy to just give our power away. And especially with young kids at home, and especially if we have young kids at home and we're trying to work from home all at the same time, it's so easy to just be like, well, I can't do that because, or I can't do that because. And it's really one of the themes in the conversations I had in that first season of Naptime Empires, which I haven't even finished yet, the first season. It's just on pause for a couple months. It's really just one of those themes that I really want to drive home for people, because I got to drive it home for myself, which is that it's all choices. Mm-hmm. It's just all choices. There are some people who have built multi-million-dollar empires while having like single momming with 3 kids. Like it's all possible. It's all a matter of choices. So there are going to be trade-offs for every choice we make, but ultimately it's about choices. So I just want to empower myself and everyone who will listen to me, just to realize that we do have those choices. And if you want to do something that's going to be fun, another thing I love to say is that selfish is the new selfless. Because I know that you're not going to be totally selfish for real and like not pay attention to the big Maslow's hierarchy of needs to your family. Like we're going to make sure our loved ones are taken care of course. But we all 100% always need more permission and reminders that if we're not filled up, I like to say fill your cup and then serve from the overflow. If we're not helping anyone when we're depleted and crabby, grouchy a-holes because we're putting our needs, and not even needs, but like our wants last, like the fun stuff last. So if you can trick yourself into thinking like, I'm going to go get a pedicure today because everyone will benefit. You think it's selfish because you're like, no, I don't want to take time away. But like, honestly, think about the mom you're going to be or the wife you're going to be when you come back from that horseback riding session, Zumba class, lunch with your girlfriends or whatever. Think about the person you're going to be after that hour away, as opposed to feeling like, oh my gosh, your family can't possibly do without you for an hour. I'm like, for me, I know my guys are totally fine. They have a blast with their daddy. It's kind of like, hey, I'm over here.
Yes.
Anyway, it's prioritizing us. And that has been a huge lesson. Like I said, that I've learned in various places, but especially with Susan in particular.
I love that reminder that like we're being, right? Like not just what we're like doing and what we know up as us.
I think.
Oh no, did I chop out?
Yes, that's okay. Did you ask a question?
No, I just said I love that reminder that it's so much more about like who we are and who we're being and taking care of that, and not just about like what we're doing and what like expertise we're displaying.
Right. Otherwise we're totally in the weeds, and then you wake up burnt out and like, wait, I built the wrong business. I was just doing stuff because that was the system and somebody said that was the blueprint and I was supposed to do this and this and this. And then you wake up and you're like, wait, but what happened to all the stuff that me, like my unique spirit really loves, and the way that I love to show up in the world, and the way that I love to contribute, and the way that I love to feel when I'm home with my family or out with my friends or traveling or whatever. It's like we have to push pause long enough to zoom out and really think about that. And again, we teach what we most need to learn. That's why I love to have this conversation right now, because it's what I have needed, or else I would be like totally cuckoo by this time during this season of what I call biz puberty.
Yes. So tell me, of those people that are listening or watching the replay that are moms that are looking to practically do that, like what would you say is like a good first step in being able to do that?
To re-energize themselves? I mean, I would say make a list. Honestly, like make a list and get a pen and paper and make it real and make it physical and let yourself dream. Because like you were saying, what are my hobbies? Like truly, what are the things that are actually fun? And I'll give you some ideas because I wrote down some of my own stuff. And it's not even just hobbies. Like it's not even things to do, but it's like ways that you're taking care of yourself. So like for me, I have I call them my hippie vitamins, like these supplements that I fell off the wagon for taking because there were so many of them and counting them out and whatever. But I know I feel better when I do that. So taking my vitamins, meditation, free meditations, taking 10 minutes to just have that quiet time, waking up earlier, which means going to bed earlier so that you're not like, I'm not going to wake up earlier because I'm tired. Okay, mama, then go to bed at night instead of being like, everybody's asleep, so now I'm going to stay awake till midnight and then wake up feeling like super tired in the morning. No. So going to bed earlier, dancing, like having a playlist of music that really lights you up, being out in nature. We have a pool now, so just like getting on the pool and floating, or when we lived in Hawaii and I would actually go to the beach, not very often, but when I did, I just loved to float in the salt water. Journaling, conversations with friends, stretching, doodling, like being artsy if you're really creative. We're all creative, but we tell ourselves that we're not. Big Magic was a big book that helped me remember that about myself. Like I have a blank canvas here that, well, it's blank because I painted over the previous one, but it's like I used to love to paint. So I have an easel and a blank canvas, which is symbolic right now, but ultimately I'll paint on it. Listening to videos that fill you up, podcasts and stuff that really like you feel more sparky and inspired after listening to that, then while you're doing the laundry or the dishes or something that you have to do anyway, find a way to make it more pleasurable for you. Like no one's making you have to be totally bored and like a machine and a robot. So just thinking about that kind of stuff, because then when you do fill your cup, that's when you're going to be inspired and get those divine downloads. Like I think back to Hawaii and walking by Pearl Harbor, there's this beautiful park that with the sidewalk that kind of goes from the Pearl Harbor side to Hickam, the Air Force side. So many of my divine downloads came when I was out there with the stroller walking with Bryson when he was little. Like just actually being out in nature, taking time for myself, moving my body. That's been a big thing because I haven't been moving as much. And that was something that I was journaling the other day. It's like you've been moving, but you've literally not been moving.
Wow.
For me, I was like, oh my gosh, because I'm a little fluffier right now than I normally am. And I've been like, And I'm like, okay, I packed myself up to protect myself during this season. For this move, I packed myself. So I literally have a little bit of extra cushion in bubble wrap right now. And I'm like, so the idea, instead of thinking like I need to work out and I need to eat certain foods or not eat certain foods, I'm like, the idea of unpacking myself is actually really inspiring and feels really good. So what can I do to unpack myself and to let my real self be out and free and on display and doing what she wants to do, as opposed to protecting her and keeping her in this little box. Like, we made it, we're good, we're here. And now it's time to unpack. So that was another big aha that I had. But I mean, truly one of the key ingredients to all of this is friends that you can reach out to. Not friends that are gonna like vent and be and complain with you. You do have to be able to vent, but like really it's more important to have the friends who can be like, all right, I see you, I receive that, I can hear that. Now how about this?
Yeah.
Now how about the real truth of who you actually are, And like you need friends who can listen to you, but you also need friends who can listen to you and then bounce something back over the net that's actually more empowering than the story. They're not going to be like, I know, that totally sucks, doesn't it? Right. Okay, bye, go have a stinky day all on your own. You need the friends who can like sing that song back to you when you forget the lyrics, whatever that beautiful saying or expression is. So making a list, checking it twice, having friends who can hold you accountable and lift you up when you're having a day where you're spinning out, listening to uplifting podcasts and things, music that makes you feel better. It's pretty much all free. So again, there's no excuse. You have to be willing to acknowledge that you always have a choice. And that's a really powerful piece of all of it, especially with kiddos, because it really comes down to people are like, well, I can't because I have kids. It's like, right. But you could, especially during summertime when young kids are home, you could have a mother's helper, a 10-year-old niece for us, who comes over to play with the little guy while you do something. Like you can make it happen. So like you need friends that aren't going to buy into your excuses.
It's almost like because we have kids, we have to make it happen.
Yeah, right. And you can choose to see it as a limitation or as a superpower because it's helping you force yourself to think creatively and be extra efficient to really make most of the time that you do have, where it's like dedicated free time. And you may need to get out of the house. You might need to get out of the house. And that's something I'm realizing, which is unfortunate because I'm like, oh, I'm so excited about my office. And then I'm like, wait a second. I might actually need to get out of the house or like to record a podcast where it's more insulated. Maybe I need to go down the road to my parents' house because I'm used to recording my podcast in a closet, a carpeted closet full of clothes. And we don't really have those unless I really want to squeeze myself into like one of my son's closets. I don't know. I'm thinking about my studio, but it's like you might need to get out of the house and that doesn't make you a failure by any means. And I think a lot of times people who think like, well, I started my business to be able to be home with my kids. So blah, blah. It's like, again, do what you need to do and know that when you do it in a way that feels good to you, everybody benefits. In your house, out of your house, literally the whole world is feeling better when you are. So.
Yes. So good. I feel like those are all things I'm learning right now. And I love, like, as I was listening to your examples, I love that all your examples are really simple and practical, but yet also they all demand your full attention, right? I mean, at least a chunk. So it's like, I think where I go wrong is when I try to overly multitask. Not that it's bad to like podcast and listen and do the laundry at the same time, but I think like, I like try to, I don't give enough attention to those listings. And I love that, like, well, in order to take your vitamins, you actually have to sit there for 30 seconds and do it, right? Like, you can't multitask that. Like, you have to like do the vitamin thing, right? Like, it's like all those things are simple. All the meditation may take 10 minutes, but it's still 10 minutes where you're just meditating. So it's like, it takes discipline, but I love also that you're reminding us that it's not like you have to set aside 5 hours.
Right. And you can literally like, you have to think about how good you feel after you do it. So like, again, my unpacking myself and finally actually moving my freaking body as opposed to, moving it across the ocean in theory.
I love that analogy. It's like it feels so much more empowering and supportive.
It does. Truly came in like a divine download after I gave myself time to have like a guided visualization kind of thing. And then I'm like, okay, what else do I need to know? It's like, okay, you've been moving, but you've literally not been moving. Cause I'm like, why do I feel stuck? Well, you're not moving. And I know that like, cause when I started my business, Bryson and I, we would walk. I was in like the best shape of my life because we would walk pretty much every day just to get out of the freaking house, like for sanity, for clarity, for sunshine and everything. We would walk. But then for some reason with Deacon, we didn't get into that routine. And in Texas, it's really hot right now, but still we could walk, we could swim, we can whatever. And so finally, just by doing that, you could think, okay, if you're working out to where at the end of it, you're like, I'm going to feel so lean and strong. Well, maybe you're not after one workout, but you may feel more energized. You're going to feel really proud of yourself for actually doing something good for your body. So you have to think about how you feel after each micro episode of it, as opposed to feeling like, oh, if I don't have a 6-pack after my first workout, then I'm just going to give up because it's not working. Like, that's not what it's for. It's actually just to help you feel better. So if you kind of train yourself and create your own vocabulary after you do each of those things. Like right before this call, I finally sent an email to my list of like 20,000 people. And I've maybe sent 4 emails this year, truly. Like I've just been not in that zone of sending emails. And so sending an email, like putting a message out and encouraging people, simple as it was, and it took me less than 10 minutes, that feels good. So I'm noticing, okay, I feel good when I actually communicate with the people who asked to hear from me. So after you do one of your things from your list, like just notice how good you feel after you do it, because that way you're thinking like, oh, I don't want to write the email. I don't want to work out. Then you're like, actually, no, remember, I feel really good after I do it. It's like getting your little treat, So it's like you're going to, that you can get your little treat. Otherwise, you're just, again, stuck in that rut. It's so easy to get stuck into. And again, that goes back to the value of having friends who can be like, try this, or send you a funny GIF or like a YouTube link to one of your favorite songs or something. And they're like, I'm here for you. But at the same time, give yourself the 5 minutes and then try something different and shake it up, because the world needs whatever it is that you have to share, which is you.
Yes. I love that like reminder to, after we do the thing, like celebrate and be grateful. Because I think for me, often I'm like, okay, I did it, but I should have done that 2 weeks ago. And then now there's the next thing, and like feeling discouraged, instead of like, no, let's take this moment and remember it and celebrate and be grateful, because that'll actually propel me forward, right? Even though like somewhere in the back of my mind, I feel like, oh, beating myself up is going to get me there faster, but it's actually that's like the furthest thing from the truth.
Right. And it could get you there, and then you're really grumpy, resentful, and burnout. So that's not ideal. And so again, it's like, we just have to retrain ourselves, and it's a practice, so we're not going to be perfect at it, and that's okay. But just noticing and anchoring it in, so that next time we're like, oh yeah, look at me go, look at me, and even having like my friend Marcia Shander of yesyesmarcia.com has a self-care calendar where she has just a little flip calendar, and she puts star stickers for herself for every time she does something.
I love that so much.
Yes. And then she posts a picture of it. I think she still does it, where she posts a picture every month of like, this month was a little different because blah, blah, blah. But she has a calendar where she gives herself a little star sticker. And so I would go, and I'm going to start doing this now that I've worked out a whole 3 days in a row. I'm going to go and I'm trying different ones too, right? Like I'm trying different workouts because I want to find a way that feels really fun. So I actually look forward to the whole process, not just the end result, but like the whole thing. Probably like a dancey or a stretchy one is what I'm really going to like. But going into the calendar and being like, put a little V for I took my vitamin, or a P for taking my probiotics, or a T for T-tap, which is one of my favorite workouts. Like literally, it sounds so silly, but it's just what we need to do. It works for our kids and it works for us for a reason, because it's just that learning to celebrate ourselves for just the little things that we're doing.
So good. So many great reminders. I know I'm going to go back and listen to this interview so that I can, like, as a participant, take notes, because I think, like, well, as women in general, but like especially as moms, it's just such an important reminder that this stuff, like even though this was so much personal stuff, it's so much business stuff, right? Like these are the things that like really move the needle forward in our business and help us like get inspired for the next move and stay in the game when we're feeling discouraged, but from a place that's going to last. And I love that you said like, yeah, sure, you'll move forward, but you might also burn out, right? And so I think this is a way where we can move forward, but also like hopefully last and stick in there and evolve as our life and business evolves.
Yeah, enjoying the process, you know, like that's the thing. Like, yeah, sure, we can do this and get X result, but then what happens to us in the middle of it, you know? And if we're like not enjoying it, then you wake up and you realize you're in your 5th year of business and you're like, wait a second, where did my life go? Where were my game nights? Where did this, you know what I mean? So I love especially reaching people in the earlier stage of business. We all have to learn. We all have our own journey, whatever. You know, sometimes you just got to go through it to see it. But from here, from just a few steps forward, I'm like, take this, pass it on. Like really just, there's no one keeping you from enjoying the journey except for you, because you feel like it has to be done a certain way for this, that, and the other. And it doesn't. Like everything will be better, more fun, more enjoyable, and more profitable when you're filling your cup first. So having friends in place to help remind you of that, and having those like go-to resources when you just need a refresh or just like a fun escape to read the book or listen to the podcast or whatever, that's been priceless for me.
One more question for you. What would you say, like with all of that, what do you feel like is the cost for not doing that? Or what would you say like is the level of like all the things, like all of the to-do list things in our business, and we're like, but I also need to write that email, but I also want to take care of myself. Like where do you feel like all of that lands?
Yeah, well, it's literally a waste of your time. And I know this because I used to send my emails every Friday when I was actually sending my emails. So again, don't try this at home. I'm not saying, but if I had forced myself to write emails when I wasn't in a good place or when I was feeling drained, and you can always batch. That's great. Denise is one of the best lucky batches that I know. And she's really,
I see what you did there.
But like, if you're just not feeling it, I mean, you just have to know, again, is it because you really don't want to do it? You don't have something to say. And if you forced yourself to do it, then the energy would be like pollution in people's inboxes as opposed to lifting them up. Or maybe you have really something valuable to share. It's just that it's a waste of your time to try and do the dictator thing. Because I would do that. Speaking of the big leap, he talks about the upper limit problem. And I felt like every Thursday night I was creating an upper limit problem for myself. Because I'd be like, no, Nikki, you have to finish this email plus this blog post plus this image to put it all together. And you can't possibly just make it easy, say what you want to say to people this week and move on. I felt like I had to make it so hard for myself. And so it was like, that's why I had to take such a break from all of that so that I can kind of retrain my brain and send a 10-minute email. Like that's something I want to celebrate, that it took me less than 10 minutes. It was very inspired to just send this message, and we just kind of have to retrain, because otherwise it's just not worth it. Like literally we're the ones doing this to ourselves. So if you have a problem with how your business is working, then talk to your boss about it. You know? Like you don't realize or remember you're actually your own boss, and all the things that you're making that are stressing yourself out, the commitments, the deadlines, and all of that, like truly look at what actually really does need to get done. Like really, because there's probably a lot that you could postpone or cancel altogether, and it would be fine. No one would die. No one would hate you forever. Even if you feel like, no, but I said I was going to do this. It's like, yeah, but she's also a human too. So even if you committed to, for example, doing an interview, if we really had to reschedule, I would just say, look, and you would totally understand. If it was like, things are too crazy or blah, 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 you'd be like, okay, that's all right. You know, we'd reschedule. So there's just so many things that we feel are real in our brains that this has to happen. So they actually don't. And if you can just, again, push pause and zoom out long enough to see like, oh, okay, this actually doesn't have to happen. It's okay. We're going to be fine. This is going to work out, and prioritize your energy. Again, this is like, it's funny that I'm saying it because it's just exactly what I've had to tell myself for long enough to where it's just flowing right out of my mouth now, because it's just my new way of doing things, as opposed to feeling like this has to happen. Now I'm like, oh, I actually need to get some work done this week. So I swung to the opposite end of the pendulum, where it's like, okay, let me just get a few hours in, because I've just been giving myself a break, but that's what I needed, you know? So following your energy is going to help you feel inspired to put a plan in place that you want to follow. And you know, that's the other thing. Joseph Chilton Pierce, he has this book I haven't read yet. It's up in this cabinet over here, called Magical Parent, Magical Child or something. Susan told me about it. But in the book, it was something about discipline and the true meaning of disciple, meaning joyful follower, as opposed to discipline. And we think the dictator that gets in your head that's like, no, you got to do this email. You've spent 2 hours working on it. You can't quit now, or you've wasted all of that time or whatever. But cultivating a discipline where we actually love to show up, to do what we want to do, that to me is the goal. Because I don't want to be all flimsy, just fall, you know, fly by the seat of your pants or whatever. That doesn't feel good either. Like, it feels good to have a structure where you know you're supported and you know this is the plan, and to batch when your energy is high and whatever. But that to me is the ultimate goal of like having something where it's a practice and a routine of filling your cup, so that the rest of it, the outcome just happens, because you know that you're going to be energized and inspired with your true work, not the work that you feel like you have to do because you're a performing monkey. You know what I mean? I
know exactly what you mean. You're speaking right to me, as you always do. So I'm just grateful for your message and your heart, and that you, like, it's so beautiful too that you like sent your email right before this interview, because I think you're living out, like, yes, at the end, because I think, like, I'm sure that you're similar to me, but like, you know, at the end of the day, we're like, oh, but yes, I do want to do that, but is that going to get me the results in my business? But I love that you're living that out, and you're like, see, it did. And I didn't have to sit there for 4 hours to write an email that wasn't lit up and didn't resonate, right? Instead, I literally wrote my email in 10 minutes and boom. And in fact, it's probably going to inspire and touch people more than something I would have labored over. So see, and like, I love that you're able to like show us practically how that's been working.
Yeah, I'm in it. I am in it. And part of me is like, well, is it irresponsible to share while I'm still in it and I don't have this shiny, like, see, look what happened, and then I made $1 million, you know what I mean? But I do feel like that's part of the big lesson, which is to show that it's okay in the chaos and in the midst of it, in the eye of the uncertainty storm. It's okay. We're all right. We're doing okay, you know? We just have to take the next right step. And what's going to inspire the next right step as opposed to the next should step is that, like, honoring our energy and filling our cups and being the humans that we were literally designed and created to be, as opposed to feeling like the to-do list has to be the boss. Like, that's not the case. We have a higher boss if we choose to tune into that energy, as opposed to being led by the list. Because then the right stuff is going to find its way onto your list, and it's going to feel darn good when you do it, you know?
And I'm so grateful that you share, like, in your journey, because I think it takes a lot more vulnerability to do that, instead of like, hey, look what I learned last year, and now, like, I'm all squeaky and shiny, right? Instead, like, hey, this is what, you know, I'm going through right now. And I think you do it in a way where you're not expecting, like, your audience to heal you. You're not like, here's my stuff and, like, affirm me. You're like, no, I have my own personal support.
Yeah, please don't. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. You're like, I have my stuff enough together, and I'm processed enough to where, like, I'm confident in who I am. Right. But also I'm still vulnerably sharing where I'm at in my journey. Yeah. I love that so much.
Thank you.
And I am personally grateful. I feel like I benefit from what you write and what you share. And if people want to continue to keep up with you, if they're like, I need more of this Nikki person, how can people continue to follow you and connect with you and hear from you?
Yes. So anywhere, Nikki@elledgebrown.com is like home base, but I haven't been blogging over there because I was doing my show notes at naptimeempires.com. So either one of those points, or if you want actual practical, like, copywriting tips, you can go straight to acourseaboutcopy.com. You can Google Nikki Elledge Brown, and Google will correct you if you misspell it. That's totally fine. So I'm anywhere and everywhere at Nikki Elledge Brown pretty much. And I am communicating more often, so you will hear from me more often when you sign up at any of those points of entry.
I love that. So beautiful. And just because I love watching your Facebook lives because they like pop up on my newsfeed, but if people want to like watch more of you on video, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, probably, I mean, the playground, which is, again, that's like my hub of communication. So if you go to naptimeempires.com/Facebook, then that'll get you the link to the playground, because most of my conversations are going on in there. Sometimes on my page, but again, I like to say I'm talking to the people who have their fingers on their nose. Like a kindergarten teacher was like, okay, put your finger on your nose if you can hear me. And so I'm talking to the first round, the little Nickies who are like, leaning in really close to listen. So the playground is where I spend most of my days, to quote Fresh Prince.
Beautiful. I will post all of those links in the comments or in the main section after this interview series ends. But thank you so much for being here. It's been a delight to connect with you. And I hope you have a good rest of your day and good luck unpacking your office and getting all settled in.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Love this conversation.
Just takes a second to end.